I'm Janine. This is Outside the Box, and standing by to join me is Kristin Hanggi. She's connecting from New York City, and we're going to talk about her upcoming book, God, Sex, and Musical Theater, Meditations for Unlocking the Powerful Self. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. It's fun to hear my book title out loud.
Isn't it amazing? It's like, this is really happening.
It's so wild. And I keep sharing with people that I can't believe I did it. And I have these moments of like, wow, I might have like a sharing hangover, when you put so much of yourself out there and you get so vulnerable.
Yes.
And you're like, whoa, I just opened my heart up. And that can happen with one person. And then sometimes you're like, oh, I just did that with anyone who wants to read about it.
That's right. I know it's you feel very vulnerable, but I'm sure it's something you've wanted to do for a long time. Am I right?
Well, I've always written poetry. And the book isn't classical poetry. It's prose. It's really me telling stories about my own life. But my writing process started as, a little girl. I just wanted to get my feelings out. I wanted to understand my feelings and ask questions about my feelings and dissect my life and know what's going on. And so my whole life, I've always gone to the page for answers. My whole life, I journal every morning. That's part of my own practice. And I always feel like I can hear the whispers of grace as I write. So if I have something that's weighing on my heart or a choice and I don't know which way to go, or if I'm in the middle of something that's so confusing, I'm like, when I put it down on paper, it's like I start to feel where I'm being led, and my fears will quiet down and I can hear the voice of my inner spirit start to speak to me on the page. And so I've had this forever. And at one point, my best friend, Natalie Roy, told me, kind of had an intervention with me. And she said, you are queen of people making their dreams come true. You are queen of putting your voice into the world. And she's like, and I am so mad at you because you don't do anything with your poetry. And I was like, well, it's my poetry. It's not for other people. It's for me. Right. But the truth of the matter was I had been seeing in my meditations that I was supposed to release this into the world. And like most creative ideas, I had huge resistance to the idea of that. So I don't know about you, but I always feel like as a director, I work from visions. So when I'm directing a film, TV, a musical, I read the script and visions start to drop in. Right. And so I always see that as information from creative consciousness.
Yes.
Directing me in the way to go. And my job then is to be responsible and to listen to those visions and take them as direction. So as if the director is being directed. Yes. And I also found in my own life that I would get those same visions and whispers on what is the next thing to do. And, Rob Bell is a friend of mine, and he's always said to me, our only job is to create the next thing we're told to create.
Wait, excuse me one second, Kristin. What was the name of the person? We broke up for a millisecond, but what was the name of the person?
Rob Bell.
Rob Bell.
The author of Love Wins and many other great books. And he says, our only job is to create the very next thing that we're told to make. And I had found in my own life, because I love creating, that I always wanted to do all the projects. I want to do this one. I want to make that. I want to do this. If someone wants to make something, let's make that.
Right.
And, there's like this abundance of creative energy always flowing out of me. And I want to make all the things. But in doing that, I wasn't paying attention to the deeper listening inside of me that was like, I'd like you to make this. Here, go in this direction. Probably because I had resistance to how vulnerable it was and how personal.
It's
as
scary.
A director, right. And as a director, you can kind of hide behind other people's stories. And even though I had a podcast and I put a lot of myself out there on that podcast, and I taught, I could just hear this persistent voice within saying, this is what we do next. And then I had a series of life events where the universe, sometimes I'll joke about the universe cock blocking me. It's like the universe is like, don't pass go, don't collect $200. Like, this is the only thing you are allowed to do next. And I was like, I was like, fine, stop yelling at me, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And so I like to play a game. If this were to be easy, how would this line up for me? And then take that route. Okay, I like that. It's a fun game to play, because then you're like, oh, it looks like the universe is trying to make this really easy for me. Why am I being dramatic about it? Exactly. And I had a friend who owns a poetry publishing company. So I reached out to him and he's like, all right, let's do this. And then I got to go on the really fun journey of editing, refining, going deeper into the pieces, and then took about a year to put this collection together, which some are older poems, some are newer poems, some were written during that process.
I feel like with everything that's going on right now with the pandemic, and we had talked about this, that this is a great time. I know some people are thinking, to release my book during a pandemic, but this is really a good time because people need this, especially creatives. There's over 40 million people out of work. A lot of actors, actresses, et cetera, in the creative community. But to be able to connect with you and hear your poetry is really powerful.
Oh, well, thank you. And part of the reason I feel like I'm on the planet is I love to help people create what's inside of them. And I know every time I go to create a new thing, I hear those voices that come up, the limited beliefs, the voices of not enoughness. And I think often the reason that we have resistance, as Stephen Pressfield often talks about, author of The War of Art, which is one of my favorite books of all time, is that there's a healing process that happens when we make something. So when we show up for the book that wants to be written through us, the business idea, the movie we want to shoot, we actually get to see and hear these limited beliefs that usually we keep hidden from ourselves.
Oh, I like
so the
that.
reason we put off making the thing is because we don't want to confront, there's a feeling of not enoughness. There's a worry about who cares what I have to say. Somewhere inside of me, I'm worried I'm not smart enough. Right. And so it's the walking through that untrue belief.
Yes.
It's painful because it's untrue.
There's so much self-doubt.
Oh, yes.
So much.
It's like in the world, and you get it on you as you're living.
Well, and let me just add this, that, sometimes when you share your stuff with the wrong person, that person could be someone who's never taken that risk, taken that chance to put themselves out in the world.
Yes. Yeah, people project all over us.
Exactly.
And sometimes they, thinking it's lovingly, they share their fears.
Right. Yeah. Like, how could you share your poetry, Kristin?
Right. And we get our creative wounds, we get wounded.
Yeah.
And I have seen, I've gotten the chance to work with creatives in this healing container of putting our work into the world. And what I've seen time and time again is there's always another life waiting for a creative on the other side of that soul project that wants to be birthed through them. Yeah. So it's almost like that I always feel like the soul project that wants to come out of us has a healing antidote inside of it, but we have to go down and let it all come out in order to get that beautiful anecdote.
Definitely. I'll just share a little something with you. And this is not a plug of my own book, but just the process. So I lost a friend in 2010 and I was devastated. I took a year off from radio and decided to finally write my book and call it Get the Funk Out. Shit Happens, What to Do Next. But the point is that book helped carry me through another struggle. My dad had cancer. So you never know as you are creating something, what it will do. And it was so healing, and it led me down other paths. And I think that's really what happens when you're willing to take that risk.
Yes. And it connects us. So as you're willing to talk about this very personal thing that you went through and you open yourself up, then as the reader, I get to connect with that part of you.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the world right now, we are so hungry for true connection, for true vulnerable heart to heart connection.
Yeah.
And it takes that kind of bravery, the courage, like from the heart.
Yes.
In order to get there. How did you, in your process, how did you overcome the fear?
I had been writing down different stories for years because of a teacher when I was 15. And she was so powerful, this adorable little old lady in Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut and New York. And she said, there are no wrong answers. Just tell me how you feel. There's no right or wrong. And I just kept writing these stories. So as I got older, I decided to take stories of my past, put them on paper, and I saw a theme. And then I went through them and I picked the ones that I maybe I'm not as daring as you, but I picked the ones that I didn't feel as raw to put out in the world because it was my first book. The ones I would feel comfortable with. I mean, I have a lot of things I didn't share, and that's okay. But it was my first step of bravery as a writer. Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Well, you too. So I want to talk about you as a Broadway director.
Sure.
How did that come about?
I have always been a girl that loves to play pretend. I like to put on a show, and I like to get my friends together and say, let's make believe.
Love it.
And I love to nurture creatives. And something happens to me when a project is speaking to me where it's like I become so tenacious. We are making this. And so I was always that way growing up. And when I got to college, I was just obsessed with making shows. And I was making show after show, saving my waitress tip money so I could buy props. My car was always full of props. And, one show led to the next show, to the next show. And one of the things that happened is that my budgets would constantly start to get bigger. So we had $1,000 for a show. Then we had $5,000. Then I had $10,000. Then I had $50,000. Then I had $100,000 to do a show. Then I was like, oh, this show costs $1 million. And it just kept growing like that until one day you're like, does this show cost $20 million? And that just happened over time. Yeah.
Mind-blowing.
And you know what it did? It grew my faith.
Yeah.
So I started to realize it grows as you grow. And it stretched me out, and it grew my character, and it taught me many lessons along the way. It took me right up against my wounding, wherever my wounds were, again and again, so that I would consistently have to heal and grow and evolve. And I started to feel on a very deep level that there was something that was for me, that was working with me whenever I would seek out to do a project, when that project was in alignment with who I am. Now, I also had to learn, what does it feel like when I'm doing a project that's not in alignment with who I am? Or a project that's a great project, but I'm not the exact right fit for it. So there's been a lot of lessons I've learned through the process of directing. It's been a teacher for me in many ways.
That's amazing. What a gift.
Oh, thank you. It's just so fun. I can't not do it.
It's incredible. So share with the viewers and listeners some of the projects. I know Rock of Ages, right?
Yeah. So Rock of Ages is a baby of mine that, began, my first meeting for it was in December of 2004. In 2001, I was doing the Pussycat Dolls at the Roxy, which is this really fun, burlesque show that turned into the pop group Pussycat Dolls.
Yeah.
And we had all of these great guest stars like Gwen Stefani and Christina Aguilera and Charlize Theron and Nika Costa. It was such a fun time.
Amazing.
And all of these rock stars came because there were these gorgeous girls in the show. There's 40 stunningly beautiful girls. I was deep in my tomboy phase at the time. And I would be directing at the back of the Roxy. And a lot of them would come in and these rock stars, and I'd be like the tomboy at the back, and they would tell me their stories of, I remember when the first time we played the Sunset Strip. I remember the first time we played the Roxy. And I was like, there's so many stories that happened in this building. There's so many like dreams that got launched. And there were funny characters that like worked at the bar that I would see day after day. And then they would tell me their stories of what occurred. And then I started to have my own stories because I was basically at the Roxy every day for 3 months. And then at one point, one of the producers of Rock of Ages was like, hey, I think we can give the rights to some 80s music. I'm just envisioning something with like power ballads, like the song Don't Stop Believing. And Matt Weaver sent me 4 CDs, remember CDs, full of music. And then I remember my dear girlfriend, Kelly Devine, was associate choreographer on a new show they were starting in La Jolla called Jersey Boys. And I went down while they were in rehearsals before the first production ever happened. And we drove around for a weekend listening to these songs. And then I pitched the producers on the idea that it all happened in this club on the Sunset Strip. And then went looking for a writer and found Chris Dorenzo. And let's see, our first workshop was in 2005. And then we went off Broadway in 2008 and then opened on Broadway in 2009. I'm always interested because these things feel like they're taking forever to happen as they're unfolding.
Sure.
And then when you look back, you're like, that was actually really fast. But inside of it, it feels like, oh, will my dream ever happen? You know, it's so dramatic.
As you're eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Will I ever be able to pay my rent?
Oh my God. Wait, and you went to USC, correct?
Yeah, I went to UCLA undergrad, and then my master's is from USC.
Okay.
And my deep passion in life is storytelling and storytelling structure. So as you know, I also love to teach creatives the process of creation. And I love talking to writers about how writing is such a spiritual process, in that we're taking what is inside of us and bringing it out, and how we tell stories, mythic stories. It reflects how we learn in our lives. So how the hero's journey and the heroine's journey is like spiritual math.
Yes.
And it's imprinted in our stories. And yeah, I love talking about what stories have to teach us about how we learn.
And I'm just going to add something to that, because I shared my writing teacher. Sunday morning, I got up at 6 a.m. to finish a short script about that writing teacher. And I thought, I can't believe what gets into me. As a writer, you have to get up, you have to be alone, and you get into that state of flow. And you're in these characters and these storylines, and you actually get weepy at certain points or happy. But it's all this imagination within you that you just have to get out.
Yes. And isn't it exciting? I love to think of our creativity is here to entertain us.
Yeah.
To delight us.
Right.
It wants to take us somewhere. And then when it's finished its process on us, then we can give it to the world.
Definitely. Yeah. I actually was talking to my daughter one day, and I said, can I share something with you? And I started sharing my story, and the lead role was an 18-year-old, and she was struggling and she wasn't talking to anyone. And I laid out this whole story, how the mother and daughter weren't connecting, and that there was a teacher that the daughter really liked, a creative writing teacher, and she brought her out of her shell. And my daughter just sat there. She didn't really know I could write like this. And it brought us closer because I was sharing this creative journey with her.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Connection.
Right.
We get to see each other.
I was going to say, what advice would you give to people that are creatives right now and they're going through a really hard time? Perhaps they're out of work.
A lot of grace, a lot of understanding for the feelings that are coming up. I feel like the feelings that come up inside of us want to be listened to. They're like beautiful children inside of us that want our attention and want space, and they don't want to be pushed down. And if we can give our feelings expression, So that might be writing them down, just writing as honestly as you can, or painting them out, or dancing them out, finding a way to move the feelings so that they get seen and heard and validated. And that brings us into deeper connection with ourselves. And we'll find that the feelings, when honored and moved through something creative, will start to take us somewhere, and new feelings will start to move through us.
There is a sense of optimism once you create something or you're working on something. You have this sense of excitement in your life that you didn't have before. And when, as you said earlier, like when you finally start doing that thing, whatever it is, writing that script or journaling, you feel more uplifted.
Absolutely. Yeah, creativity is healing. Art is healing. It is potent, amazing medicine.
Right.
That connects us to other people. And I am the biggest fan of deep, deep listening. So just creating space, and it's great if you can get space in nature, but wherever you can, just to listen and be unafraid to listen to what is coming up from you. And I feel like our soul always wants intimacy with us. And so when we can give our soul a chance to speak to us and have expression, oh, it gets really excited and it lifts us. It has a power and a dynamic to it. It raises us.
Which we need right now, tremendously.
Yeah. It comes with our soul has a vision inside of it. It's trying to birth through us.
Right. Do you want to share a few things about your book? I would love to hear more about it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I might even share a short poem if you want me to.
It. Absolutely.
And my poem itself, I like to joke that it's about my three favorite things: God, sex, and musical theater. And when I say God, of course, I'm talking about, the word God has so much baggage on it. I'm talking about a force of love that is the thing that grows us, that surrounds us. It's the energy, it's the life force. Mm-hmm. And creating a relationship with that energy that is as unique as who we are. And then I love talking about sex, because I love talking about how individual and personal each one of our sexuality is, and giving that freedom and expression. And can it be something that we are not scared of, but that also, like creativity, can nurture us and bring us energy and life force. And then, musical theater is just my love, my deepest love. So I'm going to read a poem, and it's a little bit of I'd say a feminist poem, but this is kind of about a part of my soul that wanted to talk to me. And I can't remember if there's any dirty words in here, but there might be. Is that a problem?
No, this isn't going live over the airwaves. It's just, YouTube and whatever.
Okay, great. Well, vamp for 2 seconds as I find the right one.
No
so
problem.
I should have had it all pulled up.
No problem.
But maybe you could tell us about this piece you're writing right now. Is it a script?
Yes. So I actually wrote a few scripts during this whole time period. And the one I wrote is about my writing teacher. And as I said, it's the relationship between a girl who's experienced the divorce, or the dad has left the family and she doesn't talk to the mom anymore. And the mom's having a hard time. She lost her job because of ageism. But she produces music. She's very musical, but she has reached a point where she lost her mojo, pretty much. And so there's this friction between the two of them not communicating. And the beautiful thing is that somehow this teacher just shows up one day, this old woman, and she starts trying to pull this young girl out of her shell and get her to communicate. I don't want to give too much away, but it's the story of how once the woman helps save the daughter ends up helping this older woman, because she is older and she's going through some issues of her own. And it's a beautiful story, and then it connects everyone. Yeah. That
is stunning. And so much the heroine's journey. There's like the meeting of the goddess and the reconciliation of the feminine. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
This poem is called A New Friend. I met someone today. Well, someone kicked my door down and met me. It was my powerful self. She's not the kind of bitch you mess with. I asked if she'd be my new friend, and she snarled, "That's a stupid question." And then she winked at me to let me know she's always been my friend. But she was pretty pissed because I kept her locked down, pushed down, put down for so long under politeness, and she was about to fucking scream, "No, no more." My powerful self leaped up and declared, "I'm in charge now. No more playing small. I was sent here to get shit done." I mean, that chick doesn't mess around. She knows the entire universe has her back, and so she struts with the confidence of a woman on a mission, because she is. And she knows. She came here for a specific reason, like a jacked up Joan of Arc. She's talking about revolution, and she came here to stand for change. And she presses her ear up against the silence, listening for the still truth that is always being transmitted, so she can not so gently grab a bullhorn and scream into it with the reverence of Joan Jett, "I have a message for you. We need what's in you. Yes, you. I'm talking to you. I know you are afraid, my love. I am too. It's okay. We can be afraid together, but sister, no more blending in. There isn't time. No more staying quiet. The work is too important. No more pretending you don't know when, damn it, you know. You came in knowing, and someone out there needs to know what you know." See, there's this powerful self in me, and she won't shut up. She just wants to wear high-heeled stilettos and a short skirt. And she came to call out the powerful self in you, because we all came for rebellion. We came to yank people out of complacency. We came to shock people out of their sleep. Insubordination is the new frontier, and there is an uprising coming up from another kind of consciousness. They say the door to liberation swings inward, and waiting at the home of your heart is a tough-ass mother who wants to shake the world to its core. "Don't push down the things that make you special," she says. "Don't smooth out those corners. Be jagged, be sharp, be freaky. Let them be scared of you, and don't give a fuck."
Woo.
There's a new friend in town, and she's not the kind of bitch you mess with.
Man, I love that.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Awesome.
Thank you.
Now, is that a newer piece, or is that something you wrote a while ago?
It was probably about 2 years ago.
Okay.
I actually remember when I wrote the first line of it was, I just wrote down on my iPhone one day, I met a new friend today. She's not the kind of bitch you mess with. And I think, and this was probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was a day that I just like stepped into my power, and I was like, "Who's that? That's not who I am." And I liked that part of me, but I was also very afraid of her. And it was almost like a little bit of a taste of her. And a lot of the book is me looking for these hidden parts of myself.
Yeah.
These parts that have been conditioned out of me.
You know, I was actually, I'll share a little story. One thing about my daughter, I told her a lot of times people let other people take their power. I said, it's so important as you grow up, don't let someone take your power, because that could become a pattern. You know, you have the ability to respond to someone's actions, behaviors, whatever they inflict on you. How you respond is key in life.
Yes.
And we need to hear that at any age.
I think for most of my life, I didn't know. And I just gave my power away to everyone and everything. And I didn't even know I was doing it because it was all I knew. It was all I saw modeled.
Right. Yeah. It's so healing. It's so interesting. Do you look back at these pieces in your book and think, oh, that reminds me of this event. This reminds me of this incident. It's really your tracking the moments in your life and how you have grown through these experiences. It's amazing to put it on paper.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's wild. And they're still teaching me. I'm still listening to incorporate the lessons that they have to give me.
What else would you like people to know about your book?
Oh, that it is meant to be a friend to them and to encourage them to look inside of themselves and see what they want to express. and to give them permission to be who they are. There's a lot in me that wants to obliterate shame and help people to know the truest and most powerful parts of themselves. True power, the power that comes from owning your story, allowing yourself to be seen, embracing those parts of you that you'd want to deny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's also never too late to bring up something that you need to work on and heal, because that's just going to help you move forward, to be braver, to be a better actor, writer, creative in any aspect.
Yes. And I feel like the more we create, the more opportunities we get to heal those things that are in us. It's a never-ending unraveling process.
Definitely.
Mm.
What else would you say to people that are perhaps wanting to pivot and maybe do something new during this time?
Absolutely. That's so exciting. It's so exciting to do things that are new. It's so exciting not to know and to play with life. I am a big believer in the power of play and experimentation, and go, all right, what sounds like the most exciting thing I could possibly do? Let's do that. Let's go where the life is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go where curiosity is taking me. It's okay if I don't know how to do it. I can walk into the unknown. I can take a risk.
Right.
I have seen through this process, I feel like I hear a lot of people say to me that life isn't safe or certain. And so if I've been trying to hold on to safety and certainty, I now see that that's an illusion.
Yeah, yeah.
So what happens if I just go deep into my heart and walk into the direction that my heart takes me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you definitely have to go through this storm where you've realized, you know what, this person is toxic. This situation isn't good for me. Why do I get a stomach ache when I'm around that person? And you kind of have to unpeel the layers of what's going on and sit in your stuff and kind of figure it out.
Yeah. The wisdom of the body. I always feel like our body's constantly giving us messages of like, oh, nope, not that relationship.
Right.
Oh, don't go over there. And just learning how to heal that relationship of listening to our bodies so that we can know what to do. I want to tell a really quick story. I know we're almost.
You're fine.
Okay. This morning, I was meditating. And I usually run in Central Park after I meditate, but my hip had been kind of like hurting me, my right hip. So I'm like, oh, it's my masculine side hip. It's about moving forward in the world. Like I'm going through all the questions you do when you're scanning your body for information. And I was like, well, what do you want, hip? And it was like, I want to move another way. I want to dance. And so I just put on some dance music on Spotify, and I just started dancing through Central Park, just listening my body and let it move the way it wants to. And I was having so much fun. And I was like, oh, and what the dance was teaching me is that all that matters is that I move in a way that feels good to me. Yeah. And whoever wants to can watch or ignore or think I'm crazy or enjoy the dance. And there was this older woman sitting on a bench, and I was just dancing past her, and she goes, I think you're wonderful.
Aww.
And it was
that's
so fun.
New York. That's what I miss about New York. I love it.
Connection.
You bet. Now, all you needed was a pair of roller skates too.
Oh, I gotta learn how to roller skate. If anyone's out there who wants to teach me how to roller skate, I am down to learn.
Yeah. Or rollerblade or whatever.
I saw this girl rollerblading the other day, and I was like, she looks so cool. I want to do that.
I know, in New York City, of all things, that's a talent. I used to roller skate in New York as a kid. And occasionally I'd fall into dog shit. But I would just, because I lived on East 86th Street, and I would just go down to like the 50s, and I would just roller skate, no worries, nothing. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's so funny. I live on 82nd.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm.
Where? 82nd and what?
Columbus.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah. It's the hood.
The hood.
Thank you so much for letting me be on your show and share my creation with people. And I love that you're creating from such a pure place inside of you. And I'm so excited about your screenplay.
Thank you. I wanted to have you on because it's so nice to hear some good news. And when you shared it in your Facebook group, I thought, oh, this is wonderful. And I wanted to be able to share it with my listeners and share it with the world, because we also need to look back and say, you know what, it's not too late for me to be creative. Some people might be watching and say, well, I used to write, or I used to this, or I used to that. It's not too late. And this is a perfect time.
One of my favorite spiritual teachers is a woman named Florence Scovel Shinn. And she was a metaphysician in the 1920s. And she had this, it was a Bible phrase she would reference of, I will give back to you the years the locusts have taken from you. And she interpreted that to me as, I will give you back the years the negative thoughts have taken from you. So the moment that you are like ready to empower yourself and say, I will go back to writing, I will start painting, I will do the things, that we get that, like almost like the life force has been held for us.
Yes.
And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about people creating is I had a grandmother who was a writer, and every time I'd go see her, she'd pull out her stories she wrote when she was young and talk to me about how she just wanted to write. And her son is my father, and he was like a secret writer and a secret artist his whole life who didn't do it.
Secret.
Yeah, right. And how I got to know my dad is I would sometimes like go looking for his poems so I could know what was really going on inside of him, right? And now my dad is in his late 70s and he has early onset dementia, and he's been painting and he's been writing. He got published in his little community's newsletter, and it's beautiful to see him give himself permission to be the artist that's always been in him to be.
Because so many times we live our lives based on, you need to go, I was doing it too. You need to go to school, get your master's degree, go here, do there, get the corporate job. And you're thinking, well, that's not really what I want to do. You wake up one day and say, why did I do that?
Yeah. There's that great quote, I think it's Thomas Merton, but I know Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung talked about it as well, is you spend your whole life climbing up the ladder to only realize the ladder was against the wrong wall the whole time. So
true.
Yeah.
So true.
And I do think that if we can give ourselves to the things that bring us a sense of life and vitality, that's honoring ourselves on the deepest level.
Right. I just wanted to ask you, back to your dad. Have you recorded his voice sharing stories with you?
It's so funny. I have not. That's a great idea.
You should. I mean, I did it with my dad, and I would do it when he didn't even know. I mean, it was fine. He didn't share anything personal, but just having the sound of somebody's voice, and also at the time they are able to express their stories and share things that they at one point won't be able to share. It's a gift to have.
Thank you for that. I do feel like every time I'm with him, there's almost like an urgency inside of him to tell me his stories.
Record it.
He wants to be known.
Yeah. It's powerful to get that down. I would just listen to my dad share these stories. I have a little studio in my room to do voiceover, and I would just just call him up, and he would make jokes, and yeah, it's good to have. Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, they can follow me on Instagram, and my handle is at Hanggi Love, or I have a website that's my name, KristinHanggi.com, KristinHanggi. You can also find me on our Create Facebook page. So Create as an acronym, it's Create Book Community page, and that's where Natalie and I post often. We also have a podcast called Let's Play, the Create Podcast. And we have a corresponding website that's thecreateseries.com. So there's lots of different ways to find me, find goodies, find offerings, find me talking about the creative process. And as you know, my best friend Natalie is a deep yogi, meditation teacher, mindset coach, and I could listen to her all day. I'd say come to our podcast just to hear her pearls of wisdom.
I will definitely do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, good. And if you both want to do this again, that'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be so much fun.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really love this.
Me too. I loved it as well. It's so great connecting with you.
You too.